for putting it all in context for us. We'll just get the PowerPoint up and I'll introduce our next speaker, Peter Power-Hynes. Peter, who again has travelled to be with us, this time from London, left Castleknock in 1970. He is an accountant by profession, is principal in his own practice in London, but maintains a great interest in Irish and military history. He holds an MA in Irish Studies from St Mary's University in Twickenham. So Peter, when you're ready. Can people hear down the back? Can you hear?
No, we can't hear.
Not really. Okay.
Good evening, everybody. It's a privilege to be here back at the college again tonight for this very auspicious occasion, the launching of the Roll of Honour for the First World War, for which Liam Lowe has done a remarkable job. Many colleges after the First World War, particularly in the UK, published Rolls of Honour. But I think with the plethora of new information which is available from official records, producing a Roll of Honour at this stage is obviously, in my view, much better than it would have been if it was published in the 1920s. When I left Castleknock, I studied accountancy, but I had a particular interest in history, partly because I grew up in Carrick-on-Suir, which, as everybody knows, has quite a connection with the college. But in 1916, in a debate in the House of Parliament, John Dillon, MP for Tipperary, stated that the town of Carrick-on-Suir had sent a larger proportion of its population than I think any town in England has done. We believe that some 900 men from Carrick-on-Suir district fought in the First World War when the official population was about 4,000 people. And before I came to Castleknock, I knew quite a few of the old-timers who'd served in the First World War, and there was the British Legion hut, as we used to call it, in front of the town park where they used to spend their leisurely hours. Very few of the people locally could tell you any stories that they related, because they tended to keep themselves to themselves, and they went for long walks in the country in the afternoons, and I think that's probably where they told the stories among themselves, where they knew their colleagues who had gone through the same experience as them would believe what they had to say. My own family's involvement in the First World War was limited to the granduncle who served in the Royal Army Medical Corps, but my great-grandfather James Hynes and his daughter Claire were lost on the Leinster on the 10th of October 1918, so I have two First World War casualties in my immediate family. One of the people I used to hang out with in Carrick-on-Suir in the 1960s was a guy called Paddy Boland, who served in the Connaught Rangers in the Boer War and the First War, and he happened to be my grandfather's porter at the provincial bank when he was manager there. And without knowing it, I was influenced by Paddy, and as a result of that, I ended up doing a dissertation on the Connaught Rangers for my MA in Irish Studies at Strawberry Hill. I collect memorabilia connected to Irishmen in the First World War, and I was going through a few things on eBay back in May of this year, and I came across a First World War death plaque. And as you can see there, the First World War death plaques were issued to the next of kin of every casualty of the First World War. And the difference with this one was it was named to John Cleary, which was clearly an Irish name, and it had some contemporaneous documentation addressed to his next of kin. which showed a sister living in Bayswater in London and an aunt living in Clare in Cahir in County Tipperary. What I usually do when I come across somebody new like that is to set up a family tree for them, an ancestry. And I've got about 750 trees at the moment, ancestry, which I don't think they're too happy about because it's geared up to cater for a maximum of 12 on one subscription. But when I looked up the 1901 census for John Cleary, I discovered he was attending Castleknock at the time, so that obviously was a major coup from my point of view. As you can see there, the death plaque just has the name on it, doesn't have any regiment, so without the contemporaneous documentation, you wouldn't be able to identify which John Cleary it was. The 1.35 million plaques were issued in total, right up to the 1930s. The next thing I usually look for is the Commonwealth War Graves Commission entry, which shows where the individual casualty was buried, or if the rule of the Commonwealth War Graves Commission is that if you don't have a headstone, your name will be on a memorial of some kind. And fortunately, in this case, he has a grave in Wailing Orchard Cemetery in Pas-de-Calais. The next record I tend to look for is Ireland's Memorial Records, which very difficult to read from here, but he's listed on Ireland's Memorial Records. And the next thing I look for is soldiers' wills. A lot of soldiers' wills for soldiers of Irish origin are available through the National Archives in Dublin. In this case, I got a copy of his will from the Canadian Archives. This is the copy of the census from 1901, showing his name on the list. And his full name was Vesey Cleary, which is quite a unique name. I then had to find his baptismal record for Ballina and County Mayo, which is written in Latin, but again his full Christian names and surnames, so it's easy to identify that as being him. He was born in Ballina in 1885. He emigrated to Canada after he left Castleknock, and he became a member of the Teamsters Union in Alberta. He joined up on the 8th of January 1918, and this document shows a list of his service. The 31st Canadian Infantry was raised as one of the 4 fighting battalions of the 6th Brigade of the 2nd Division of the Canadian Expeditionary Force on the 15th of March 15. John arrived in England on the 4th of March 1918 on SS Melita and proceeded to Aldershot. It's a possibility he might have met his sister Helen, who was living in Bayswater at the time. It's difficult to know whether that actually happened, but it's a possibility. He landed in France on the 9th of August 1918, and after only a week at the front, he was killed on the 25th of August 1918. And in this document from the Canadian Archives, it gives the circumstances of his death. He was on post about 11 p.m. on the 25th of August, when a number of heavy shells landed nearby in quick succession. One struck behind the post, severely wounding Private Cleary. He was picked up and found to be unconscious, with a large artery in his right leg severed and a severe wound in his side. First aid was given and he was taken on a stretcher to Company HQ, but he had died before reaching there. As I said, he's buried in Wailing Orchard Cemetery, which is very close to Arras, and there is, I would recommend anybody who happens to be in that area to pay him a visit, because when I went to see him back in July on my return from the T-Bow Memorial service on the 1st of July, I got the feeling that I might have even been the first person to physically visit his grave. and I bought the death flag with me, which I got on eBay, and photographed that with his headstone. The Canadian military authorities are very good with documentation, and they have very detailed records, and they're only too happy to help and to provide the information free of charge. So that's my summing up in brief on discovering Vesey's in Cleary. Thank you very much.
Peter, thank you very much. That piece of detective work certainly makes it very real. Next up, I'm delighted we're very lucky to have our next speaker with us this evening, Dr. Pat McCarthy. Pat has travelled all the way from Sandymount. But first and foremost, Pat is and always will be a Waterford man. I'm actually an old neighbour of Pat's and married to a Waterford girl, and every time Pat meets girls, he says, why are you married to a Meath man?